I'm reading now on the top of page 204 as we begin our service. My friends, who can understand the source of our errors? Cleanse me of secret faults and restrain your servant from willful sins. May they not control me. Then shall I be innocent of wrongdoing, wholly clear of transgression. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. We're ready now to begin the Kol Nidre service. We rise as the Sifrei Torah are removed from the ark.
בישיבה של מעלה, בישיבה של מטה, על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל, אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים.
By the authority of the court on high and by the authority of this court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed. Page 205, the first of three renditions of Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre ve'esarei v'charamei v'kolamei v'chinoyei v'kinusei u'shevot Tabon sharan shvikim shevitin betelin umvutalin la sheririn vela kayamin nidrana la nidre vesarana lo esare ushvatana la shevut.
And now for the second time, join me in the English at the top of page 205 as we read the Kol Nidre together in the English. All vows, renunciations, bans, oaths, formulas of obligation, pledges, and promises that we vow or promise to ourselves and to God from this Yom Kippur to the next, may it approach us for good. We hereby retract. May they all be undone, repealed, canceled, voided, annulled, and regarded as neither valid nor binding. Our vows shall not be considered vows. Our renunciations shall not be considered renunciations, and our promises shall not be considered promises.
Kol Nidre ve'esarei v'achramei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'kinusei Nidre
The entire congregation of the people Israel shall be forgiven, as well as the stranger who dwells among them, for all have erred.
סלח נא לעוון העם הזה כי גודל חסדך וכאשר נשאת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה.
Moses prays, as befits your abundant love, please forgive this people's sin, just as you have always forgiven this people from the time of the Exodus from Egypt until now. And there it further says, Adonai replied, I have forgiven as you have asked. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space, for granting us life, for sustaining us, and for bringing us to this moment. And you may be seated.
Tonight, I am honored to welcome Marcy Rothman with her wife Tammy and her mother Hava. Many of us see Tammy, Marcy, and her mom every Shabbat, welcoming everyone, chanting along, and enjoying being a vital part of this congregation. They are shining examples of active members of Beth Yeshurun and renowned for their significant involvement in volunteer work here in the Houston Jewish community. Marcy grew up right here at Beth Yeshurun, and her mother Hava and her father of blessed memory, Dr. Irving Rothman, raised their daughters to have a very strong background and education in Judaism. While Dr. Rothman was a scholar of 18th century English literature, his love for education extended beyond his 5 decades of tenure at the University of Houston's Department of English, to include conservative Judaism and the importance of the State of Israel. Marcy often attended services with her parents, both in the Barg Sanctuary and in our daily chapel services, where Dr. Rothman was named Millionaire of the Year for his faithful attendance at daily services. Dr. Rothman had his commitment as his way of showing his compassion for others. He wanted to make sure that the daily quorum of attendees was met every day so that anyone who needed to say Kaddish would always have a minyan. And following in Irving and Hava's footsteps, you can often find Marcy and Tammy in services or at a synagogue board meeting or volunteering on a social action project. They are very involved and very present. It is a tremendous honor of mine to welcome Marcy Rothman to discuss her role at Beth Yeshurun and how it played in her family's life. Marcy.
Good Yontif, everybody. My name is Marcy Rothman. In the summer of 1967, when I was 3 years old, my parents moved to Houston. My dad, Irving Rothman, of blessed memory, had gotten a job as an English professor at the University of Houston, where he taught until his death in 2019. It was at a time before the internet and before email. There was no Google, no HAR, no Zillow, no Facebook. There were no cell phones. If you wanted to make a call from somewhere outside your home where the phone was tethered to the wall with a coiled cord, you went to a phone booth and you put a dime in and you used the rotary dial to call a number that you got from something called a phone book. In that environment, my mother wrote and stamped and mailed paper letters to the Jewish community here in Houston, asking where to live and what synagogue to join. And the community took my parents in. Sylvia Axelrod, may she rest in peace, helped my parents to find their home in Meyerland, where my mother still lives today. And she became like a second grandmother to my sister and me. Mother and Dad joined Beth Yeshurun. But my dad was a school teacher. So to pay for our commitments, he began a 40-year labor of love teaching at the Hillel High School. Most of the conservative Jewish kids in Houston who grew up between 1967 and the early 2000s were taught in some way by my dad. He served on the board here, he attended Minyan, he read Haftorah regularly, including here on the high holidays, for decades and over the course of generations. When it came time for my sister and me to go to school, my parents had known they wanted us to have the best Jewish education available here in Houston, the Beth Yeshurun Day School, which is now appropriately known as the Jack Siegel Academy. During those years, and throughout his time as our rabbi, you could hear Rabbi Siegel's distinct voice reverberating down the hallways. He spent time in every section of what was then the open concept classroom where all of the classes were held. In my mind's eye, I can still see him standing at the center of this sunken lecture area that they had, youthfully becoming part of the class, capturing our imagination with Bible stories, and leading us on our journey of Jewish faith. Along with our parents, he built our Jewish identity by making our history and our practices come to life. You would be hard-pressed to find anyone from that time in the life of Beth Yeshurun who did not participate in following him. You can see it on the screen. Following him at Passover time, dressed up like Moses, often in his talit, but always carrying this enormous 7-foot staff. All of the kids would follow him, and we would march from the synagogue down into the bayou and all the way to the JCC, reenacting the Exodus story. I think I'm going off script here. The young man in the white shirt, I think, is Michael Mukasey, and the young girl next to him, I think, is my little sister, Andrea. So we continued our Jewish education here during high school. We were bat mitzvahed here. My sister was married here. When I had a life-threatening illness some years ago, I woke up in the hospital to Rabbi Siegel's familiar voice, saying the Shema with me. Tammy, my spouse, went through Rabbi Morgan's conversion classes here, and as soon as UOS opened after the pandemic, she went to the mikveh under the supervision of Rabbi Fort and the rest of her Beit Din, Rabbi Morgan, and members of our synagogue. Our friends have been married here. Their babies have been named here. Their sons have been brought into the Brit Milah with our rabbis. Our friends' children have been and are being married here. On Shabbat after Hurricane Harvey, I'm sure so many of you experienced this, our sisterhood leadership came walking up the driveway at my mom's house amid all the mud and chaos to deliver Shabbat candles and challah, an expression of love amid all the tzuras. We've had simchas and sadness here. It's where we find our community at important times in our lives. Like so many of you, we've sat in the same seats in the Barg sanctuary for 56 years. This sanctuary, those seats, they're home for so many of us, and I hope all of us. And for the people who are new here and are starting to put down roots, you will find those same connections. This is a wonderful place. And it is from those seats last year, during the High Holiday Appeal, that I started thinking in detail about Rabbi Siegel's message. He focused on how important it is that Beth Yeshurun be here for years to come. That is why I'm standing here in front of you tonight. We are Am Yisrael. We will always survive. But we are also conservative Jews, and we want our blend of traditional observance to thrive. And we want our community to be as strong as this beautiful building. This year, our Chai Appeal is just a little different. With special thanks to Rona and Bruce Caress, thank you, Rona and Bruce, a portion of the funds raised from the appeal will help us to honor Toby and Rabbi Jack Siegel with special programs. The idea is to enhance everyone's spiritual and intellectual connections to Judaism as a living tribute to Rabbi Siegel. Tonight, I'm asking you to join me, especially this year, in remembrance of Rabbi Siegel, and because these programs will be here for everybody, exactly the way he brought Judaism alive for us, let's all pitch in together to support this year's High Holiday Appeal. Your contribution, regardless of the amount, small, large, regardless of the amount, matters. If you look to the screen, you will see listed the members of the Tzedakah Society. They have committed to doubling the impact of whatever you give. They will match appeal pledges and contributions dollar for dollar. This is a special opportunity to support a meaningful tribute to Toby and Rabbi Siegel by ensuring the strength of the greatest synagogue and community that observant Jews could ever want. If you have already sent in your contribution, thank you. If you have not had a chance to do so, please fold down your pledge amount on the appeal card located in the seat pocket in front of you, using the extra label from your entry ticket. Please hold up your completed pledge card, and one of our board members will come around now to collect your pledges. Thank you so much for your support, especially this year. Lashana Tova.
And we're now ready to begin the Mariv section of our prayers this evening. We rise and turn to page 207 for the Barg. And please be seated now as we continue in our prayers, page 207.
אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו ללמד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ורבים
Page 208.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
We now continue silently, page 77 through the middle of page 78.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
We continue now on page 210, Micha Mocha.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל, לחנו שירו בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מלכותך ראו בניך בוקרם לפני משה, זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני מלך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כיפת אדוני את יעקב וגולה מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני
We'll read responsively in the English on page 211. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully and to waken again to life, our sovereign. Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow, and remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you, God, watch over and deliver us, and you are the sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people of Israel, and over Jerusalem. Hashkivenu, page 211.
We continue now in the middle of page 212.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תטהרו.
For on this day atonement shall be made for you to purify you from all your transgressions. In the presence of Adonai you shall be pure. Centuries ago, a Hasidic story describes a wealthy man who prided himself on his self-denial. He comes to his rabbi's home and he brags that he eats only bread and drinks only water. The rabbi, horrified, orders the wealthy man to start eating rich and nutritious meals and to even drink fine wines. After the rich man leaves, the rabbi's disciples are puzzled. The rabbi explains, as long as he himself eats only bread, he will think the poor can live on stones. It's not until he eats meat when he realizes that the poor need bread. Yes, it may be tempting to deprive ourselves of pleasure rather than face the challenge of repair. Yet self-denial, as we do tonight for the sake of solidarity, the rabbis remind us, is a waste of our blessings. Our Jewish tradition reminds us Yom Kippur is a time of self-denial, but for the rest of the year, we can enjoy our blessings if we also use our gifts to improve conditions for the poor and the powerless. Do we need to do more of that during this new year? Let us ponder on that and other questions we may have on this Yom Kippur as we now prepare for the silent Amidah. We first rise, the middle of page 212.
ויתחדש שמי רבו ועמוד יפרחי רצי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל
Min kol b'chatzor shirotai
now turn to page 213, and before we pray silently, let us now remember the words, Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may speak your praise. Adonai, sifatai tivtach, ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Adonai sfatai tiftach, Adonai sfatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ufi yagid tehilatecha.
Adonai svatai tiftach, Adonai svatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai svatai tiftach, Adonai svatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai svatai tiftach, Adonai svatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha, ufi yagid tehilatecha.
And now let us pray silently, page 213 through page 221. O God, this evening, on this Yom Kippur, granted abundant and lasting peace for your people Israel and all who dwell on earth. Shalom Rav. This evening, we also think of those who are ill, who need an extra prayer, a refuah shlema, a complete healing of the mind, body, soul, and spirit, as the cantor now leads us in a Misha Barak prayer. You be seated. All vows, bans, oaths, formulas of obligation, pledges, and promises that we vow or promised to ourselves and to God from this Yom Kippur to the next, we hereby retract. May they all be undone. Our vows shall not be considered vows, and our promises shall not be considered promises. Why in the world do we say these words? On our holiest night of the year, we are going to break our promises. As we recited a few moments ago, the Kol Nidre prayer has always felt strange to me. To recite this Kol Nidre prayer many times has often felt uncomfortable, awkward, even wrong. Yet why do we recite the Kol Nidre prayer year after year? There are all sorts of explanations and theories, but in the months leading up to Yom Kippur, I was determined to find the real reason. I started my journey where we all begin today. I asked ChatGPT. Here was its answer. By renouncing unfulfilled vows and promises of the past year, Jewish individuals can begin the new year with a clean slate and a renewed commitment to fulfilling their obligations. ChatGPT seems to have a nice answer, but not really. There are two issues. If you notice, the prayer Kol Nidre renounces vows we will make this upcoming year, not ones we made this past year. And why would we need to break our promises to make a renewed commitment to fulfill our obligations? If anything, the Kol Nidre prayer should tell us, vow now to fulfill all of your promises. My job as a rabbi is secure for now. I had still not found my answer. I then went the historical route. I learned that several historians have argued that the Kol Nidre prayer was necessary because of forced conversions, the ones that happened in Spain and Portugal in the 15th century during the Inquisition. The theory is that many who converted remained Jews in secret, and that once a year on the night of Yom Kippur, they would make their way to the synagogue to release themselves from the vows they had taken to adopt another faith. This theory really doesn't work. The Kol Nidre prayer was in existence several centuries before the Inquisition. It's also unlikely these secret Jews would have risked torture or even death if they were discovered practicing their Judaism in such a public way. Really, from an historical perspective, we should have stopped reciting this prayer long ago. For centuries, Kol Nidre created even more hostility from our non-Jewish neighbors. They said it showed that we Jews do not feel bound to honor our promises since we voided them on our holiest night of the year. In fact, throughout the Middle Ages, and in some places until the 18th century, in lawsuits with non-Jews, we were forced to sign an additional pledge because of the Kol Nidre prayer. And so some rabbis found the Kol Nidre prayer problematic, concerned it would lead us, the Jewish people, to treat vows lightly. Yet Kol Nidre continues to be recited in synagogues throughout the Jewish world. It survived all of the doubts, all the misgivings. Perhaps we should just get rid of it now. Don't tell Ken or Goldman I said that. Instead, Kol Nidre remains the classic expression of the awe and gravity of this night. Its undiminished power defies all obvious explanations. Why? Why do we still say it? After months of research, I finally found the answer from one of my teachers, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zikrono Livracha. I believe it's a compelling answer with practical implications. Let me explain. Just a few months after all the miracles God performed for our people to get us out of Egypt, what do? They worship a golden calf. And here was the challenge. God had made a vow to destroy our people if we ever worshiped idols. But start over, find a new people. God wants his sense of forgiveness to override his sense of justice. Strict justice hurts humanity. So according to tradition, God regrets his vow, and God decides to have his vow withdrawn. But even for God, this was a challenge, because God's vows could only be canceled out by a scholar, And Moses comes to our rescue. Moses, as the number one scholar, can free God of his promise. Moses does so as we read in the Torah, Vayechal Moshe, interpreted as God absolved God of his vow. Moses absolved God of his vow. And that's why Kol Nidre has the power that it has. For it recalls the Israelites' worst sin, the worshiping of the golden calf, then God's forgiveness, completed after Moses absolves God of his vow, and then descends from Mount Sinai a second time, this time with 2 new tablets. What was the date? The 10th of Tishrei, today's date, the very first Yom Kippur, the first time our people was given a second chance. Yom Kippur is purposely done on the anniversary of the great act of divine forgiveness, and that forgiveness from God was the result of Moses' act of canceling God's vow. Hence we must have the Kol Nidre prayer. Forgiveness is so important, even God can break a vow in order to forgive. In our tradition, you and I can look to God as a role model. Yes, we should always strive to fulfill our promises. The oaths and vows we make are, of course, important. But like God, are there times when we can let them go? If God can do so in order to forgive, are there times we too should do the same? How often does someone else upset us? And we promise to ourselves, I'm never going to forgive that person. Never, we tell ourselves. It doesn't matter that they may be truly sorry for what they did. With all of our being, we pledge we're going to make them pay for what they did by never talking to them again. We're going to hold on to our promise. We're not going to even give them the chance to re-enter our lives. We write them off completely. We become so stubborn, unrelenting, to the point where we think we are keeping them in pain because they can never speak to us again. My friends, the reality is, I'm not so sure they think about us too much, or even about what happened. Or they may know that they did wrong, but they may feel sorry for what they did. They may even have learned from their mistake, become better people. But we have no idea, because we won't even give them a chance. Yes, our Jewish sense of justice demands that the offender must earn forgiveness. We don't excuse unremorseful wrongdoers or their culpability merely as an act of love. On Yom Kippur, we don't forgive just so we can move on. Putting out one of those Facebook posts during these high holidays, I forgive anyone who has wronged me, that doesn't count. Actually, the funniest post I saw was last week. It said, to all those I have offended, hurt, or embarrassed this year, think very hard why I did that to you. It's still not too late for you to apologize. But my friends, too often, we don't even let those who wronged us have the opportunity to seek forgiveness. We don't even give them an opening to explain. Instead, we like to hold on to their mistake. Maybe we like having a sense of righteous indignation. We were right, they were completely wrong. I can continue to be in control by not even letting them explain. I've done it too. Years ago, I thought someone in our congregation had wronged me, and I promised myself not to even give him a chance to explain. I thought by doing so, I was in charge. But the reality was, he was in control because his mere presence upset me. Eventually, I matured enough to seek a meeting, and it turned out he felt terrible for what he had done. He was truly sorry. And that vow I had made not to even meet with him only prolonged my anger. I should have known better. I know that for some of us, it's not just people in the community, colleagues at work, or old friends. Sometimes it's people in our own families, even people we may live with. We don't let them tell us they are sorry. We'd rather not even discuss it. maybe we don't like confrontation, especially with a loved one. Or maybe deep down, we want to hold on to something against our loved ones, even against our loved ones. So we resign ourselves to just living with the deep-seated bitterness. We fool ourselves into believing that this is a better way to go on. Really, it's the worst thing we can do. For in my work, some of the most depressed people I encounter are those who live with resentment. I've seen the negative energy it takes to harbor anger, hostility, and indignation. It's exhaustive. It's not good for us, and it's not good for the people around us. In fact, living as a victim is a miserable way to live. Victimhood does nothing but prolong our agony. It accomplishes nothing. But how often do you and I hold on to the anger as if we can outlive it? The anger always catches up with us. It affects our physical well-being. It's toxic for our souls. 4 years ago, I spoke about how my brother and I didn't speak for years. And the effects of Hurricane Harvey finally provided the opportunity for the forgiveness we both needed. We should have reconciled earlier. We lost years together that can never be replaced. I still have members asking for that sermon. I learned that we are not alone. Perhaps you have a family member, a family dispute that has lasted so long you can't even remember the original cause of the fight, only that the other side is wrong. Or maybe you remember exactly what was done to you, when and where it took place. Even if the other side has moved on, you have vowed to always remember. You think they will then pay for what they did. But perhaps you are the one who is truly suffering. During these days, we put a lot of emphasis on memory. We recall our actions that we can make atonement and change our ways. But in the Musaf Amidah, the prayer at the heart of the Rosh Hashanah service, we refer to God as Ocher Kol Hanishkachot, the one who remembers what has been forgotten. God is the one who recalls even that which is forgotten, because only God can handle remembering everything. We don't have to. As it's been said many times, holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to be ill. Yes, refusing to forgive is letting someone you despise live rent-free in your head. The story is told right before Yom Kippur. Two congregants who've had a long-standing fight see one another in the synagogue. One says, it's a new year. It's time to put an end to the bickering and fighting. I want you to know that in the new year, I wish for you everything you wish for me. And the second congregant says, so you're starting up with me again. My friends, could forgiveness cure us of our emotional scars? To give the chance for forgiveness is to admit you too are in need of its powerful healing powers, improved health, peace of mind, restored relationships. It's to admit that you are also human. Maybe forgiveness is in order for the cruel things said to you when you have shared similar words, for the time you felt insulted when you've also offended others, for the business, relationship, or experience taken from you when you've done the exact same thing. For when we forgive, perhaps we are then worthy of being forgiven. This powerful and holy day of potential reconciliation comes around once a year. It's a gift. It can be a gift from God to remind us life is too short to dwell on those who did us wrong, especially when we give them no chance to seek atonement. When looking back over his life, Mark Twain wrote, "There isn't time so brief as life for bickerings, heartburnings, callings to account, there's only time for loving, and but an instant, so to speak, for that. Yes, I know sometimes it's not easy, but we hurt too much. We nurse too many grievances. That's why we have the Kol Nidre prayer. We must have it. Because the prayer reminds us that even for God, it was also difficult. Yet on this very day, thousands of years ago, even God released his vow to allow for the great power of forgiveness. Can we too free ourselves of those promises that are doing us no good for the great possibility of understanding, repairing, and rebuilding, to be liberated from the past, to build a better future? Yes, the potential for a better year sometimes, it is up to us. All vows, oaths, and promises we hereby retract. May they all be undone. Our vows should not be considered vows, and our promises should not be considered promises. And now we're ready to continue our service in the prayer book. Page 223, we rise for the Ya'aleh. May our supplications rise up at evening, our pleas arrive with the dawn, our songs transform the dusk. And may our prayers rise up at evening, coming to you with the dawn, transforming us at dusk. You may be seated, page 225.
Thank you.
We now turn to page 232 as the cantor continues at the top of the page.
אל מלך יושב על כיסא רחמים, מתעגל בחסידות, מוחל עוונות עמו, מעביר ראשון ראשון, מרבה מחילה לחטאים, וסילח להפרים, עושה צרקות עם כל בשר ורוח, לא חעתן תגמול. אין הורייתא לנו לומר שלום עשרה, זוכה לנו היום ברית שלוש עשרה, כמו שהודעת לעניו מקדם, כמו שכתוב וירד אדוני בנן, ויתייצב עמו שם, ויקרא בשם אדוני, ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא.
I'm now reading the middle of page 232. Forgive us, our Creator, for we have sinned. Pardon us, our Sovereign, for we have transgressed. For you, Adonai, are kind and forgiving. You act generously to all who call on you. We continue now with Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Please rise, page 233.
Shema Kolenu.
You may be seated. Reading at the bottom of page 233 in the English, Our God and God of our ancestors, do not abandon us, do not forsake us, do not shame us, do not annul your covenant with us. Draw us close to your Torah, teach us your mitzvot, show us your ways. Open our hearts to revere your name, circumcise our hearts to love you, then we will return to you faithfully with the perfect heart. And as befits your own great name, pardon and forgive our sins, as the psalmist wrote, for the sake of your own name, forgive my sin, though it be great. V'salachta lavoni ki rav hu. Ki anu amecha, page 234.
Why does the Ashamnu, our first prayer, a major confession, done in the language of us and we? What if we personally did not commit a particular sin? We may not have oppressed someone, been violent, or gossiped about others. Should we say sorry for something we may not have done? We all know that admitting you did something wrong can be hard. We may be reluctant to stand up individually and say out loud, I sinned in a certain way. So when we confess, as we will do now, we do so as a community. Even if you yourself do not commit a particular sin, think of it as a way to strengthen someone who did, someone who may need a little encouragement to confess and say the words out loud. Let us now rise for the Ashamnu, page 235. And now we turn to page 237 for the second confessional, the Achet. We have sinned against you unwillingly and willingly. The cantor continues.
על החטא שחטאנו בפניך באונס וברצון. על החטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים. For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. על החטא החטא שחטאנו לפניך בכחול ובכחל זהב. על החטא שחטאנו לפניך בעיניים רמות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בעזות מצח. For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. שחטאנו לפניך בפריקה דור. על החטא שחטאנו לפניך בתשומת יד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בתמהוד לבב. For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
We remain standing now as the ark is open for Avinu Malkeinu. The cantor continues, page 243.
Avinu Malkeinu, לבוננו, כי אין בנו
And as the ark is closed, you may be seated for the Kaddish Shalem.
יתקרא ויתקרא שם ברמה, ועלמתי ורקירותי, וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון ובחנכי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן, יהי שמי רב המבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתפרע וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן מעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתכבדתם לא תהונו ואל תלכו ישראל, קודם אבוני וישמעאל ואמרו אמן. יהי שם ארון שמעיה, וחיים עליל ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen.
And now we rise. I promise it's the last time. Aleinu, page 246.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם,
You may be seated. And now the Mourner's Kaddish for mourners and those observing Yartzeit, page 247. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divarach herutei v'yamlik malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayedecho beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imeru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei almayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'yimeru amen. Yehei shalama rabba mina shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen.
My friends, what if we put belonging at the heart of Jewish communal life? And this is the goal of a national program for synagogues entitled The Belonging Project, a cutting-edge initiative that merges scientific research, relationship best practices, and ancient Jewish wisdom. We know that you will feel like you belong to a congregation. If you feel like you belong, you're more likely to contribute your time and energy. And people who feel like they belong to a community also experience direct well-being benefits. Beth Yeshurun, of course, wants to be a place where you feel like you belong. But before we can move forward, we need to know where we are. So that's why this year we are participating in the National Belonging Project. Over the next few weeks, we hope you'll fill out our survey on your feelings about belonging to Beth Yeshurun. You could find the flyer with the link to the survey in our Bender Levy lobby tonight, and you'll be seeing it in our emails and the October message in the coming weeks. Taking a few moments to complete the survey will help us all. Everything you normally love about Yom Kippur and our Barg Sanctuary is in store for tomorrow. We'll begin at 9:30 a.m., and we hope you'll consider staying all day. After Yizkor, we'll have our beautiful Musaf service, some of the most important prayers of our holy day. Frida Wilson will speak about her father's experience in the Shoah. Two Jews by choice will speak about their personal journeys to Judaism. If you like, there'll be a mindfulness practice at 3 p.m. in the chapel, led by our own Maniza Mirza Gruber. At 4:15 p.m., Mincha, as always, will be led by our teens, and we'll have some wonderful teen speakers, Max Frankel, Talia Musher, and Brandon Strug. And then Rabbi Fort will deliver her sermon before Nila, which begins at 6:15 p.m. And at 7:15 p.m., at the conclusion of Nila, our children will meet in the Freeman Levitt Sanctuary for a Havdalah glow stick procession here in the Barg. And the final blast of the shofar at 7:40 p.m. It's a beautiful ending to the day, and I hope all of you will be there. I want to again wish all of you a Gamar Hatima Tova. May we all be sealed for a good year as we conclude our service with Yigdal, page 250.
גמר חתימה טובה.